Fast signal, full receipts. Let's lock in. This week, AI stopped looking like a chatbot race and started looking like a deployment race. OpenAI put personal finance inside ChatGPT, brought Codex to mobile, launched a new deployment company, and published a security response to a real software supply chain attack. Anthropic went after small businesses, giant consulting workflows, and global health with Claude. Google pushed Gemini Intelligence deeper into Android, turning the phone itself into a more proactive agent surface. NVIDIA and SAP moved agent security into enterprise systems of record, while NVIDIA and Ineffable Intelligence pointed at the next frontier, reinforcement learning systems that learn from experience, not just from human text. And on the open model side, IBM dropped new Granite multilingual embedding models that are small, Apache 2.0, long context, and built for production RAG across more than 200 languages. So the theme of this week is simple. AI agents are leaving the demo tab. They are moving into money, phones, code bases, finance teams, health programs, SAP workflows, and local machines. If you want AI coverage with receipts instead of recycled hype, subscribe to UGTP, drop the story you want next in the comments, and keep the receipts on screen because every major claim in this video is sourced. Let's start with the most sensitive product story of the week: OpenAI's new personal finance experience in ChatGPT. On May 15th, OpenAI released a preview for ChatGPT Pro users in the United States that lets users securely connect financial accounts, view a dashboard, and ask ChatGPT questions grounded in their financial context. This is not just ask a chatbot how to budget. OpenAI says users can connect accounts through Plaid, with Intuit support coming soon, and ChatGPT can access balances, transactions, investments, and liabilities for finance conversations. That matters because it changes the shape of the product. ChatGPT is no longer only answering general questions. It is becoming a personal operating layer over private data. OpenAI says the experience supports more than 12,000 financial institutions at launch for US Pro users on web and iOS. The company also says more than 200 million people come to ChatGPT every month for budgeting, investment questions, planning, and other money-related help. That number is the why now. People were already asking ChatGPT about money. The new version adds account context, dashboards, and finance-specific memory so the assistant can connect the dots across spending, goals, subscriptions, debt, and investments. But the tension is obvious. Finance data is some of the most sensitive consumer data you can hand to an AI system. OpenAI says users remain in control. ChatGPT cannot see full account numbers, cannot make changes to accounts. Users can disconnect accounts. Synced account data is deleted from OpenAI systems within 30 days after disconnecting, and temporary chats will not access connected financial accounts. The model side is also interesting. OpenAI says conversations with connected financial accounts default to GPT 5.5 thinking, and that GPT 5.5 Pro had the best overall performance on OpenAI's internal personal finance benchmark. The published benchmark scores are 79 out of 100 for GPT 5.5 thinking and 82.5 out of 100 for GPT 5.5 Pro. That is a useful receipt, but also a place to stay sober. It is an internal benchmark, so treat it as OpenAI's measured claim, not independent proof that ChatGPT should replace a financial advisor. And OpenAI explicitly says ChatGPT can help users stay informed, but it is not a replacement for professional financial advice. So yes, the future is here. It can categorize your subscriptions. It still cannot be blamed for your midnight online shopping. The bigger implication is that ChatGPT is becoming a trust product. If OpenAI can make finance work, the same pattern can expand into healthcare paperwork, insurance, taxes, travel, procurement, and any workflow where users want an assistant that understands their actual situation. Next, Codex is coming to the ChatGPT mobile app. OpenAI announced on May 14th that Codex is now in preview in the ChatGPT mobile app, so users can stay connected to work happening across laptops, dev boxes, or remote environments. This is one of those product updates that sounds small until you think about how agents actually work. If an AI coding agent is doing a 2-hour investigation, the human does not want to stare at a terminal for 2 hours. The human wants to step in when judgment is needed, answer a question, approve a command, review a diff, change direction, or add missing context. OpenAI says more than 4 million people now use Codex every week, and the mobile app can show live state from a connected machine, including active threads, approvals, plugins, project context, screenshots, terminal output, diffs, test results, and approvals. The important architecture detail is that files, credentials, permissions, and local setup stay on the machine where Codex is operating. Updates flow back to the phone in real time through a secure relay layer that keeps trusted machines reachable across devices without directly exposing them to the public internet. That is the practical version of agent collaboration. The phone is not replacing the dev machine. It is becoming the control surface. OpenAI also says remote SSH is generally available, so the desktop app can connect into managed remote environments. And hooks are generally available for scanning prompts, running validators, logging conversations, creating memories, or customizing Codex behavior by repo and directory. Programmatic access tokens are available for enterprise and business plans, and OpenAI says HIPAA-compliant use of Codex in local environments is supported for eligible ChatGPT enterprise workspaces. That is not consumer fluff. That is enterprise agent plumbing. The coding agent is now the kind of coworker who pings you while you are waiting for coffee. Honestly, horrifying and useful is a very 2026 combination. The significance is that OpenAI is building for long-running work. Codex is not only write a function. It is investigate, test, ask, wait, resume, and ship. Now we need to talk about the less shiny but very important OpenAI story, the Tanstack NPM supply chain attack response. On May 13th, OpenAI said it identified a security issue involving a common open-source library, Tanstack NPM, as part of a broader attack known as Mini Hewlett. OpenAI says it found no evidence that OpenAI user data was accessed, no evidence that production systems or intellectual property were compromised, and no evidence that OpenAI software was altered. But the details are still serious. OpenAI says 2 employee devices in its corporate environment were impacted. It observed activity consistent with malware behavior, including unauthorized access and credential-focused exfiltration activity, in a limited subset of internal source code repositories. OpenAI says only limited credential material was successfully exfiltrated from those repositories, and no other information or code was impacted. The key user action is for macOS apps. OpenAI says it is updating security certificates, and macOS users need to update OpenAI apps by June 12, 2026. The affected products include ChatGPT Desktop, Codex App, Codex CLI, and Atlas. OpenAI also says the impacted source code repositories included signing certificates for products across iOS, macOS, Windows, and Android, and that apps are being re-signed and released with new certificates as a precaution. The company says it has found no evidence of malicious software being signed with OpenAI certificates, and no evidence of compromise or risk to existing software installations. This story matters because it shows the ugly side of AI tooling adoption. The more developers depend on NPM packages, package managers, CI pipelines, credentials, plugins, agents, and automation, the more the software supply chain becomes a high-value target. OpenAI says the incident reflects a broader shift. Attackers increasingly target shared dependencies and development tooling rather than a single company. That is the security story of agentic AI. If agents can write code, install packages, run tools. The fourth OpenAI story is strategy, the OpenAI deployment company. On May 11th, OpenAI announced a new company designed to help organizations build and deploy AI systems around their most important work. OpenAI also said it agreed to acquire Tomorrow, an applied AI consulting and engineering firm, bringing about 150 forward-deployed engineers and deployment specialists into the OpenAI deployment company from day one. This is OpenAI moving closer to a Palantir-style deployment model. Embed engineers inside complex organizations, identify high-value workflows, connect models to data and tools, and build production systems instead of selling access and hoping the customer figures it out. OpenAI says the deployment company is majority-owned and controlled by OpenAI, launches with more than $4 billion of initial investment, and is a committed partnership with 19 global investment firms, consultancies, and system integrators. The partnership is led by TPG, with Advent, Bain Capital, and Brookfield as co-lead founding partners. OpenAI also lists partners including B Capital, BBVA, Emergence Capital, Goanna, Goldman Sachs, SoftBank Corp., Warburg Pincus, WCS, Bain & Company, Capgemini, and McKinsey & Company. OpenAI says more than 1 million businesses have adopted its products and APIs, and the next stage of enterprise AI will be defined by real-world deployment. That is the big strategic point. Frontier model releases get the headlines. Deployment decides who captures value. In other words, the model got smart enough, and now the expensive part is getting it past procurement, compliance, and the spreadsheet someone named Final V9. The implication for the AI race is huge. Labs are no longer just model labs. They are becoming infrastructure companies, consulting ecosystems, product platforms, and workflow redesign shops. Now jump to Google. On May 12th, Google announced Gemini Intelligence for Android, describing Android's transition from an operating system into an intelligence system. Google says Gemini Intelligence features will roll out in waves starting with the latest Samsung Galaxy and Google Pixel phones this summer, with broader availability across Android devices including watches, cars, glasses, and laptops later in the year. The main idea is proactive device-level help. Google says Gemini Intelligence can automate multi-step tasks across apps, use screen or image context, summarize content in Chrome, help compare information, fill complex forms, turn spoken thoughts into polished messages through Rambler, and create custom widgets with simple language. The strongest examples are cross-app tasks. Google says a user could ask Gemini to find a class syllabus in Gmail and put the required books into a cart, or take a photo of a travel brochure and ask Gemini to find a similar tour on Expedia for a group of 6. Google says the user remains in control. Gemini acts only on command, stops when the task is complete, and leaves final confirmation to the user. That is the phone agent version of the same story we saw with Codex. The agent does the logistics. The human approves. Google is also framing this as a multi-device surface. If Gemini Intelligence becomes part of phones, watches, cars, glasses, laptops, and Chrome, then the agent does not live in one app. It lives across the user environment. This is Google's advantage: distribution. OpenAI has ChatGPT. Google has Android, Chrome, Gmail, Search, Workspace, Maps, Photos, YouTube, and device partners. The question is whether Google can make all that intelligence feel useful without making users feel watched, interrupted, or trapped in confirmations. Anthropic's most practical product story this week is Claude for Small Business. On May 13th, Anthropic launched Claude for Small Business, a package of connectors and ready-to-run workflows that put Claude inside the tools small businesses already use. Anthropic says small businesses account for 44% of U.S. GDP and employ nearly half of the private sector workforce, but their AI adoption has lagged behind large enterprises. Claude for small business runs inside Claude Cowork and connects to tools including Intuit QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365. Anthropic says it ships with 15 ready-to-run agentic workflows across finance, operations, sales, marketing, HR, and customer service, plus 15 skills built around repeatable tasks that slow owners down. The examples are very grounded. Plan payroll, close the month, surface business insights, run a sales campaign, chase invoices, analyze margins, prep tax season, review contracts, triage leads, and build content strategy. The most important product line is this: Claude does the work, and the business owner approves before anything sends, posts, or pays. That is the control model for agent adoption. Small businesses do not need philosophical autonomy. They need time back, fewer admin mistakes, and approval gates before money moves. This also shows Anthropic's strategy: specialize Claude into work surfaces. Not just ask Claude. More like connect Claude to QuickBooks, HubSpot, Canva, PayPal, and DocuSign. Then let it run bounded workflows. The AI is not replacing the owner. It is replacing the Sunday night invoice panic. That one can go.